Welcome to lesson number 3 of the JLI course, Secrets of the Bible. Today's lesson, we will once again address some of the fundamentals or fundamental questions that have been bothering the sages throughout the ages and is bothering each and every one of us, all the students of the Torah have been bothered by some of these stories. And one of the reasons why we're addressing these questions is because a fundamental principle in Judaism is to question the stories that we hear, to question everything that we experience, and to try to understand it. It's not healthy, it's not good just to accept what we're told. We should try to understand it better. And we don't have to be afraid to ask questions because we're afraid of the type of answer we're going to get. Because ultimately, a true seeker of truth will find the truth. And so when we begin to navigate the stories of the Torah, and we ask these pressing questions, I sincerely believe we only delve deeper and connect more with the author of the Torah, which is God himself. Not only that, it's actually critical that we ask these questions because anyone who reads the Torah, the Bible, just superficially, or kind of reads it quickly, and that is their opinion that they have about Judaism, based upon what they read quickly, they'll have a completely distorted understanding of what Judaism is about. And this is why we have today Bible critics, you have even atheists, non-believers, and a lot of their philosophy of why they're convinced there's no God, atheists or agnostics or whatever it is because they can't fathom a God that seems so archaic, so mean, so disheartening, so critical, so judgmental, and therefore they're left with the only logical conclusion is that there's no God, or this God is, I don't want anything to do with this God. So this is why it's important to actually delve into the teachings of the verses to help us truly understand what the Torah is saying. And today we're going to address the story of Jacob and Esav. Last week, we spoke about Noach and the flood. The week before, we spoke Adam and Chava in the Garden of Eden at the Tree of Knowledge. And as some have complained to me that we missed a critical story or a major story, that is at the Tower of Babylon, only because this course is only 6 weeks, we're going to have to deal with the time constraints. So we're going to move on to the story of Jacob and Esau. But it does not mean that the other stories are not important. Hopefully one day we'll get to explore these other stories in the not too distant future. But for now, let's talk about the rivalry of Jacob and Esav. There was a woman who was in her 3rd trimester that unfortunately got into a car accident and she fell into a deep coma. Miraculously, the doctors were able to keep her healthy and keep the babies healthy, and she gave birth to twins. A short while later, she woke up from her coma, and the doctor told her, "Congratulations, you had twins." She was ecstatic, and she said, "Wow, that's fantastic. What was it?" They said it was a boy and a girl. She says, "Oh, that's amazing news. Thank you so much." She said, "Who named the baby?" So the doctor said, "Well, your brother was here and we asked your brother if he wants to name the baby. So your brother named the baby." She says, "Oh no, you serious? My brother?" he's a piece of work. He's a, I don't want to say, he's a crazy guy. He's like the crazy Uncle Sam that everybody has at the Thanksgiving dinner. So he named the baby. What did he name the baby? So the doctor said, well, the daughter, he named Denise. She says, oh, that's not too bad. She says, and what did he name my son? He said, the nephew.
That's good.
So that's the story with the twins. But now we're going to talk about the first set of twins that the Torah discusses, Jacob and Esau. Now, in the introduction to lesson 3 in your student book, you will see the epic struggle that Jacob and Esau had while they were still in the stomach of their mother, Rebecca. And what we're going to learn about today is that the creation comes in 2 formats. A powerful yet unstable format called the world of chaos, and a moderated and focused world of correction. In every area of life, we struggle both realms. And that's what we're going to focus on today, this world of chaos and this world of correction. But as we've done in the last few weeks, we start off the class with a lesson video. And so I'm going to share a video here. And this video is going to give us a overview of text number 1. So for Luby, you'll just read it in your text number 1. And it's going to go through the verses that we are going to discuss today. So let's begin. Oh, 1 second. Sorry. I missed an important point here. I missed an important ingredient. And that is when I screen share, I have to press the sound, optimize sound. There we go. Here? Thumbs up.
Yes.
After many years of barrenness, Isaac and Rebekah's prayers are answered, and Rebekah conceives. But this is no ordinary pregnancy.
The children struggled within her, and she said, "If so, why am I thus?" And she went to inquire of God. God said to her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 kingdoms from your insides will diverge. Kingdom will overpower kingdom, and the elder will serve the younger." Her days to give birth were fulfilled, and behold, there were twins in her womb. The first one came out ruddy, his entirety as a hairy mantle, and they called his name Esau. After that, his brother came out, and his hand was grasping Esau's heel, and he called his name Jacob. The lads grew up. Esau was a man who knows game, a man of the field, and Jacob was a wholesome man, a dweller of tents. Isaac loved Esau for the game in his mouth, and Rebekah loved Jacob.
Okay. So the story begins by telling us that Rebekah loved Jacob and Isaac loved Esau. What exactly was it that impressed the righteous Isaac to like Esau, And what was it that drew Rebekah to Jacob? But before we get to that, we have to understand another aspect of this text. And soon I'm going to get to several questions. But for now, what does it mean, something to think about, that there are two nations in your womb? Every time she went past the house of study, one kid kicked. Every time she went past the house of idol worship, another baby kicked. So Shem, the yeshiva, the great sage of the time, told her that you have twins and one is kicking at this time, one at this time. And so what exactly does it mean that there's going to be two nations in your womb? What does that mean? Two kingdoms. And so if you look at the text closely, we get a little insight into what impressed Rebekah that she loved Jacob. And that's quite obvious because she was a dweller of tents. A dweller of tents. What is there not to like about such a goody-goody boy who likes to study, likes to learn, behaves properly? That's the best thing. What else can you ask for a child? The question, though, or the greater question is, what did Isaac find in Esav? What impressed Isaac about Esav? So the Torah tells us that he had game in his mouth. He knew how to hunt, and he knew how to find good food. Okay, that's very nice. But how is that impressive? Why would Isaac, the righteous Isaac, be concerned about his next meal? Wouldn't he be more concerned about someone who's going to uphold the principles that he stands for and that he lived for? So obviously the Torah is telling us something much deeper. But before we get into that, let's look at the next video. And in this next video, we're going to continue to explore this idea of what exactly went on in the womb, after the came out. And that is the next major part of the story, where Jacob essentially stole the blessings from Esau. So let's see. I think I did it right again. Follow along inside also.
It came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were dimmed of sight, and he called his elder son Esau, and he said to him, "Here, please, I have grown old. I do not know the day of my death. Now, please, pick up your implement, your sword and your bow, and go out to the field and trap game for me. Make for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me, and I will eat, in order that my soul should bless you before I die." Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau, and Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Listen to my voice, to that which I am commanding you. Go now to the flock and take for me from there 2 goodly goat kids, and I will prepare them as delicious food for your father, such as he loves. You will bring to your father, and he will eat, in order that he should bless you before his death." Jacob said to his mother Rebekah, "Here, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I will be in his eyes as a trickster, and I will bring upon myself a curse and not a blessing. And his mother said to him, Your curse is upon me, my son. Only listen to my voice and go take for me. Rebekah took the desirable garments of her elder son Esau, and she dressed her younger son Jacob. And she dressed the goat kid skins on his hands and upon the smoothness of his neck. He came to his father, and he said, Who are you, my son? And Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. Isaac said to Jacob, Please approach, and I will feel you, my son. Are you this, my son, Esau, or not? Jacob approached his father Isaac, and he felt him, and he said, The voice is the voice of Jacob, and the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him, for his hands were as the hands of his brother Esau, hairy, and he blessed him. God shall give to you of the dew of the heavens, and the fat of the earth, and an abundance of grain and wine. Nations will serve you, and kingdoms will bow to you. You shall be a master over your brothers, and your mother's son shall bow to you. Those who curse you shall be cursed, and those who bless you shall be blessed.
Okay. So here we see another part of the story. And this only emphasizes the challenges that we have with the biblical narrative. Every time we think we figured out something that makes a little sense, there's another wrench that's thrown into it. Here we thought, okay, Jacob and Esau were twins. It's true that Esau was first, but there's a story that we omitted over here where Jacob purchased the firstborn rights from Esau. Now, it makes sense that Isaac wants to bless his child, and the children are going to get a blessing. But no, what happens instead? What happens? Jacob steals the blessing. What's going on over here? Why does Jacob have to get the blessing in such a funny manner? So I'm going to go through 5 questions now, and let's address these questions, and then we will slowly answer all these questions as we've done in the past. Now, of course, there's many more than 5 questions. I get it. But we're at least going to try to do what we can, the best that we can, to get as much as possible into this lesson. And I think by us addressing the fundamental issue that is underlying what is really going on over here, all the questions that we have, even those that are not mentioned here, will also be answered. But sometimes when we come to the core issue of what is really going on, what is the principal purpose of all these different issues that these brothers had, many questions will be answered. So let's start. Question number 1 is, what is the deeper meaning of the 2 kingdoms? And what are they fighting for? Right? That was the first answer that was given to why they had twins. That's number 1. Number 2, if Jacob is destined to become the firstborn and the master, why wasn't he born first? Why create an upside down situation and then force Yaakov into a lifelong or generations long battle or struggle to gain the top position? If he was born first, there would have been no questions, no disputes. Why was he born second, have to purchase the firstborn and steal the blessing? Make it easy. Let him be born first if he was supposed to be first. I think that's a pretty clever question. Question number 2, why did Isaac prefer materialistic Esav over spiritual Jacob. We said that Esav was the man of the field, and Jacob was the man, the upright individual. Why did Isaac prefer Esav, who cared about material, physical things, and Jacob over Jacob, who cared about spiritual things? While Rebecca saw in the opposite way. Rebecca obviously favored Jacob because she stuck up for him and gave him a way that he could fool his father. Question number 4. Why does the preparation of tasty food obtained from the field play such an important role in the story? Right? Isaac tells Esav, go and bring me the hunted game and prepare delicious food for me. That's what's going to get you to give a blessing. Why is Isaac so fixated on this idea of food that he wants him to give it so much, that he cares about it so much? To the extent that in order for Jacob to receive the blessing from Isaac, he has to go take the 2 goats. Indeed, he doesn't go hunt it. It's true. He only gets it from the stable, but still he has to prepare the food, and Rebecca has to help him prepare it. And why is that such a major part of the story? And finally, 5, why did the blessings have to be obtained by means of deception? But in the end, it's true that Jacob received the blessings from Isaac, but he got it in a deceptive way. Why did it have to be in such a manner? So to understand these questions, let's begin by addressing question number 1. And that is, what is the idea of these 2 kingdoms that Rebecca is told that she has within her womb? And these 2 kingdoms actually reflect what Esau stands for and what Jacob stands for. Esau, we are told, represents the kingdom of Rome, and Jacob of Judea. It's obvious that we're not just talking about Esau and Jacob as individuals, but we're talking about them as in a larger historical, even cosmic duality than these 2 exact twins represent. We're talking about something that impacts us till this very day. What is Esau's kingdom? Esau's kingdom is that of Rome. What does Rome represent? Rome represents the idea of materialism, of personal self-greatness, self-realization. What does Jacob represent? Jacob represents the world of Judea, of Israel. Jacob personifies this idea of spirituality, living for something that is transcendent, something that is greater, something that is beyond oneself. And in spiritual terms, which we're going to spend a few moments talking about soon, Esau represents the world of Tohu, and Jacob represents the world of Tikkun. Hopefully by the end of tonight's lesson, we're all going to be familiar with these 2 words, the world of Tohu and the world of Tikkun. Tohu means chaos, and Tikkun simply means correction. We're going to address this, we're going to analyze this in a moment. For now, the 2 kingdoms embodied by the biblical story of Esau and Yaakov explains the historical nations of Rome and Judea as the material and spiritual perspective on life, as the selfish and altruistic instincts in the human psyche. Esau was born hairy, and according to the commentaries, he was also red. Maybe it means he was orange, gingy, who knows? But he was red. This is what it says. The Hebrew term is Edom. The Hebrew word for Rome is called Edom. That's the kingdom of the Edomites, or Edom, today modern day Rome. What exactly is this conflict between Rome and Judea? And who is winning this war, so to speak? Who is the ruling kingdom? Is it Rome or is it Judea? This fight continues till today. What exactly is this fight? Rome represents a very simple concept, a simple idea, and that is the quest for power, technology, and entertainment. The Roman Colosseum, the advancements of engineering, building, tall skyscrapers, bridges, highways, technological advances. That's what Esav personifies. Is that bad? Not necessarily. Is it holy? Probably not. But is it bad? No, I don't think it's bad. It's probably more neutral than bad. That's Esav. Jacob, what does he represent? He represents faith and belief in God, living up to a moral code, and cares about a fellow human being. Social justice, wants to do what's right for another, cares about another, thinks about what can I better do to serve another fellow human being. How can I make their life a little bit better? How can I enhance their life? So on the face of it, the struggle between these two kingdoms seems an unequal struggle. On the one hand, we have a tiny nation, all but powerless, homeless for much of its history. On the other hand, we have a vast, powerful empire which evolves into dominant global culture, Western civilization. 2,000 years ago, when the two kingdoms clashed head-on, Rome was triumphant while Judea was defeated, decimated, and exiled. They had no land of their own. But as an example of the Jewish people demonstrates, power and influence are not measured solely by population size, wealth, or military might. 2,000 years after their crushing defeat by Rome, the Jewish people are still a formidable presence in the world. One can say that the jury is still out as to which of the two competing kingdoms, Rome or Judea, will prove to be the more dominant influence in human history. We don't know. We're not sure. But we do know one thing, that clearly this is a struggle that is continuously going on since Esav and Jacob, Yakov and Esav were fighting in the womb. This struggle continues even till today. What influences of historical Rome can we identify in American society today? What influence of historical Judea can we identify in American society today? It's quite simple, quite obvious. In our American culture, we idolize ambition, quest for power, love of luxury, or a bigger and better things, bigger home, bigger car, newer, nicer, latest model, and so on and so forth. Never content with what we had a year ago, always want the latest and the greatest and the best. We worship is a strong word, but we certainly like to have, and we want, and we appreciate good art, architecture, technology, entertainment. This is all the Roman influence into our society. But we also have the Jewish influence in our society today. This is why we call it the Judeo-Christian society, because there's a very strong undercurrent of Jewish teachings. In fact, we gave a course on the Jewish gift of to the world, the gift of the Jews. So what is it that we gave American society? Belief in God, self-discipline, morality, generosity, social justice, commitment. These are all very strong Jewish principles. Mutual responsibility, pursuit of peace. These are things that we hold dear as Jewish principles. So although Judea and Rome clashed for more than 2,000 years, the struggle still continues. Well, let's go a little bit deeper. On a deeper level, Yaakov and Esav are more than just two nations in the conventional sense. They embody two world views, two approaches to life. What exactly are these two approaches to life that they embody? Isaac declares, Esav, before we read this slide, let's actually read text number 3. So now that everyone's online, I can go around and actually ask people to read. So if you could unmute yourself, I ask you to read, and please read text number 3. So I'm going to ask Melissa, we'll start with you if you don't mind, to read text number 3.
The two legacies did Isaac bequeath to his two sons. To Jacob he gave the voice as it is written. The voice is the voice of Jacob, Genesis 27:22. And to Esau he gave the hands as it is written, and the hands are the hands of Esau, IBID.
So what happened over here? What happened is the story like this. When Jacob came to Isaac and said that, Father, my dear father, please sit up so I can feed you these delicacies that you requested before the blessing. Isaac said, 1 second, something is not right. And he asked his son, he said, son, please come over here. Let me feel you. So Isaac was blind. So Jacob moves closer to Isaac, and Isaac feels the hands of Jacob. And he says, wait a second. The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esav. Esav was very hairy, but Esav didn't speak so nicely and respectfully the way Jacob spoke to Isaac. Esav spoke gruffly, get up, eat, here's your food. But Jacob was very kind and very gentle to his father. So his father said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands feel like Esav. What is going on over here? Isaac recognized that there's something more that is going on, something more subtle that is happening over here. And he said there are two dimensions to the created existence. Isaac says there's the spirit and there's the matter. Human life straddles both worlds, the world of ideas and the world of actions, spirit and matter. Only the material is real. He felt his hands. So that can be touched. That can be measured and assigned a value, a dollar value. Everything else is little more than fantasy. But only spiritual realities, ideas and principles, feelings and experiences have true and enduring value. Material things are insignificant. And this is the wrestling that the two twins had. And this is the wrestling that we have in our daily life. Two competing worldviews and two competing approaches to our life that we live. Each striving to assert its dominance over the other. Is it the matter that matters? That which can be touched, felt, weighed? Or is it the spirit, the ideas, the feelings, the experiences that we have? We live in a society today where the financial gap is larger than it ever was. You have more millionaires and billionaires that ever existed, and you also have people that are still in poverty. But many people today have more disposable income than their grandparents had. And the question is, what do we do with that disposable income? Many people, especially young people, opt to buy things with this disposable income. Get more things. But things do not bring happiness. Things do not bring fulfillment. And so today you have a movement, instead of buying things, we invest our money in experiences. You want to have an experience. Do something. You may not have anything at the end of the day in your hand that you can hang on your wall or put on your mantle. But in a way, we have much more when we have an experience. When someone travels somewhere, they gain so much more than when they bought themselves the latest flat screen TV, or the newest gadget, or the newest electronic, whatever it is that we need. Experiences and material things, matter and spirit. I'm going to skip text. I'm going to skip the next slide. And we're going to go now to address even a deeper concept. And we briefly addressed this, and I want to spend some time talking about this idea. And that is Esav and Jacob. Esav represents the world of chaos. Jacob represents the world of tikkun, the world of rectification, of correction. This idea of Jacob and Esav representing these two competing worldviews, that of chaos and that of rectification, is a major Kabbalistic teaching. So I want to briefly address the general concept of it, and then I'm going to try to delve a little bit deeper. And the general concept is as follows: that when God first created the world, he created the world, as it says in the beginning of Genesis, a world of total chaos. You know the story with the three friends, the surgeon, the engineer, and the attorney. The surgeon, the engineer, and the politician, who were talking, and they each asked the question, what was the first profession? Each one said that their profession was the first. The surgeon said he was first, the politician said he was first, and the engineer said he was first. The surgeon says, well, we know that when God created Eve, he had to perform a surgery and to extract one of the limbs from Adam. So we clearly see that surgeon was first. And so the engineer says, no. Even before that story, it says that at first God created a world of chaos, and then he corrected the world and created a world of stability. And that's what an engineer does. He takes the chaotic situation and makes it into an orderly fashion. So the politician says, you're both wrong. My profession is the first, because who do you think created the chaos in the first place? So at first, God created the world of total chaos. That's true. That's what happened. But God saw that the world cannot sustain itself in this manner. And God had to correct the world. So first you have a world of chaos, then you have a world of rectification, of correction. In Kabbalistic terms, it's referred to as light and vessels. God created a world filled with tremendous amount of light. The light was so intense that there were no vessels that can handle the light. Imagine you're sleeping and someone shines a flashlight into your eyes. The moment you wake up, you can't handle it. It's too great for you. You have to shield the light. Sometimes the vessels cannot handle the light. And what happened was that the vessels broke. The shattering of the vessels. So God had to then make new vessels to correct the vessels so that he can have vessels that can handle the light. Or God had to shrink the light that the vessels can handle the light. Either which way, God corrected that first shattering of the vessels, which, by the way, this is where the word tikkun, the word tikkun, which many are familiar with, tikkun olam, correcting of the world, is correcting or fixing or finding these broken vessels, pieces of the original vessels that cracked, that couldn't handle the light. It is our job to now find those hidden sparks that have flown all over the universe. That is what we do every day. Find and dig deep to elevate the material world, to find those hidden sparks. So this is the idea of tohu and tikkun, okay? Let's go a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. Tohu and tikkun, light and vessels, does not necessarily mean good and bad. There's intensity, or there's chaos, and there's correction. Chaos doesn't mean bad, and correction doesn't necessarily mean good. It doesn't mean necessarily negative and positive. It could mean that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. In the world of chaos, it is just that, chaos. In the world of rectification, it is just that. Let's explore this. Turn to your student books, page 86. And Rivka, would you like to read, please? Unmute yourself and read text number 4, please.
To understand the root of the difference between tohu and tikkun, and how tikkun comes to rectify and refine tohu, serving as form to its substance. As is known, the lights of tohu were extremely powerful and intense, as there prevailed a state of abundant light in scant vessels. Because the vessels were unable to contain the light, they shattered and fell. Following that, the tikkun reality was made, with scant light and abundant vessels, with the result that the lights are sustained within the vessels.
Okay. I heard a lot of light and vessel words. What exactly does this mean? So let's analyze what you read. Thank you very much, Rivka. Let's analyze and try to understand this light and vessel concept, this idea that we're talking about. God first created tohu, a world of abundant light and scant vessels, meaning to say not very strong vessels, right? But this mode of existence was not sustainable. He then created tikkun, a world of scant light and abundant vessels. Let's understand this language of the Kabbalah of the light and vessels. If you look in your book on page 87, figure 3.2, you will notice a description of different concepts, different ideas of how they explain the idea of light and vessels. A light means, in the book, as it relates to a book, okay? A light represents the idea, the non-tangible. A vessel will mean the words that are on the page, or even an idea that we have in our heads. Until we put it into words, it is considered light. Once you put it into words, now we made a vessel for that idea. So the idea now has been inserted into this vessel. It fits into these vessel of these letters that we are creating, these sentences. And now we have the word. When someone composes a song, so you have the feelings that are inserted into the song, and then you have the actual notes. The notes are merely the vessel. The notes mean nothing. The notes by itself is nothing, unless you have the emotions that go along with the notes, meaning to say, which notes do we hit when? A book without any ideas is hardly a book. It's just white pages with blotches of ink on it. But a book with an idea is a light in the vessel. In business, you have the same thing, okay? In business, you have the vision and the objective of what we want to accomplish. And then you have the business strategy, how to accomplish it, how to carry it out. What steps do we need to take? The physical manifestation of that vision. You remember I said that tohu, chaos, is not bad, and tikkun, correction, rectification, is not necessarily good. Is because we need both. In a business, you need both. You need the visionary, you need the objective, and you need this person that can carry out that objective and has the strategy. You need the emotions and you need the musical notes. Religion has the same thing. You have beliefs and values, and then you have the rituals or the customs, the technical things. There's Shabbos, then there's the spirit of Shabbos. There's a lot of technicalities that go into Shabbos, but Shabbos is not all about the do's and don'ts. There's the spirit of Shabbos that adds so much more to the Shabbos. And in a relationship, it's the same way. And a relationship that is built only on emotions and feelings will probably not last too long if there's no action involved in that relationship. It's like the guy that his wife finally gets him to go to counseling after 25 years. They come to marriage counseling, and the counselor says, "What's bothering you?" And so she says, "Well, we're married for 25 years, and he has not told me that he loves me. He hasn't said he loves me." So the guy says, "What are you talking about? Don't you remember when we first got married, I told you I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know." We cannot survive off the first "I love you." That's not a healthy marriage. Feelings or thoughts, how much we care about the other person, are very nice. But if it's not inserted into a vessel, there's no action based, it's not going to survive. Actions without emotions also speak nothing. I know people that have received the most incredible gifts from their spouses, unbelievable gifts of crazy proportions, hundreds of thousands of dollar gifts, cars, jewelry, whatever. Usually the husband's buying for the wife. I've also found that those marriages didn't last. It's not all about the gifts either. It's not only about the actions. It's also about the emotions and the feelings. So you need to have the light and you need to have the vessel. The light represents the essence. The vessel is the structure. Let's take it a little bit further. I'm only going over this idea because I want to make sure that it's understood, because I think if we get this concept that Chassidus and the Kabbalists are trying to tell us, we will not only understand this story, we can understand many other stories of the Torah. Because we still have to answer these questions that we've had that's still bothering us. So let's take, for example, you have a very talented pianist who loves to hit the keys. Comes the mother and says, you hit the keys beautifully. It's fantastic. But I'm going to give you a teacher. And this teacher is going to teach you how to play music with that piano. And this student is frustrated at first because his teacher has structure, has rules, how to hold your hands, how to read the notes, what to play first, chords, so on and so forth. And at first, the student is very frustrated. I'm this great pianist. What are you telling me? All these restrictive things, what to do? But ultimately, the mother tells the child that by you listening and following these instructions, you'll be a much better pianist than you've ever imagined you could possibly be. You have the talent, but you need the structure, you need the limitations, you need the confine of the rules of how piano works, how music works. And when you understand that, when you follow those guidelines, you will be an incredible pianist. An artist is the same way. Yes, there are rules in how to hold a brush, what to paint first, what to paint second, what colors to mix and what not to mix. That is the structure within the light. The light is the idea, the artist's mind that they want to paint. But you need to have that structure as well. Now, sometimes the light also has to overflow out of the structure. You have to paint outside the lines, the artist will tell you, and that's also true. So too it is also with a student. The student's going to say, I just want to learn everything. The teacher's going to say, hold on. First, let's do the ABCs. Then let's build words. Then let's build sentences, paragraphs, essays. There's a structure. There are guidelines. There are things that we have to follow in order for you to truly master the language. And this essentially is the idea of light and vessels, essence and structure. You have the essence of the thing, and then you have the structure. So what did we say here? You read like this a moment ago, that abundant light and scant vessels, or you have scant light and abundant vessels, right? Let's analyze what exactly does this mean. We're going to start with the world of tikkun. Tikkun is the world of correction, the world of focus, the world of harmony, orderly concepts, orderly ideas. That is scant light and abundant vessels. What is the advantage of the world of vessels? The world of structure. What is the advantage of that? The advantage is very simple. We can live in a more harmonious world. We're not all over the place. We have distinct, defined things that we're going to do, schedule, times, calendars. Everything is perfectly organized. I know what time I'm getting up. I know what time I'm going to sleep. I know what time my appointments are. I know where I'm going. I know when I'm coming. Everything makes perfect sense. Which is why people love to come to Arizona. In Arizona, you know that if you have to go somewhere, you put into your GPS and it tells you what time you're going to get there, you're going to get there at that time. If you live in New York or Los Angeles and you have to get somewhere, you don't know what time you're going to get there. Traffic may hold you up an hour, a half hour, 2 hours. You have no idea what kind of delays you're going to encounter. And even when you start your journey on your GPS in Los Angeles, and it says you're going to get there at a certain time, what happens when you're 5 minutes into the trip? What does it tell you? Recalculating. There's been a delay on the I-40-405. Nothing you can do about it. That's life. A tikkun person cannot handle that. A tikkun person needs to have the structure. We have to be, everything has to be in order. This is happening now, that's happening later. This is why a tikkun person always drives the speed limit. Now, if you notice, I'm drifting over to a nuanced language by using the word a tikkun person. Because what I'm really trying to get to is that this idea of chaos and order, or light and vessels, structure and chaos, is actually a personality trait, or two personality traits, where what I'm hoping to get to is that we should all have both of these personality traits. The tikkun, harmonious trait, and the tohu trait, the chaos trait. The tikkun person who has everything figured out will only drive the speed limit. No matter what's going on, even if your wife's in labor in the back seat, you're not going to go over the speed limit. That's what a strict, structured person will do. A tohu person will speed, even on a regular day will speed on the highway. They're always thinking about something else. The next thing, they're rushing, always, I have to go, always speeding, always running. This is why I say you need to have both. If your wife is in labor in the back seat or in the front seat, whatever, and you have to run to the hospital, you got to speed. If you're only a structured person, you will not speed. You need to sometimes have toe, go out of your vessels, break out of your limitations. A structured person will always show up to the meetings on time, is super organized. That is a tikkun person. Okay? Now let's go to a tohu person. Oh, 1 second. First, the disadvantages. What is a disadvantage for a tikkun person? They have so many vessels that they're all about the vessels. Very little light. Therefore, they lack passion. Yeah, every day is the same like the day before. Nothing new. How you doing? Same. There's nothing new. What's going on in your life? There has to be some excitement. No, everything's the same. Everything's good. Hey, very nice. But that's a disadvantage. You're lacking passion. Let's move to tohu. Abundant light and scant vessels. You have a lot of light, but very few vessels. The advantages of the tohu person, that they're dynamic, they're passionate, unpredictable. Innovative. These are great things that a tohu, a chaos person has. They have a lot of light. They get very excited about things very quickly. They have great ideas, many great ideas, so many great ideas. They overwhelm you with their great ideas. But they can also be unstable. You don't know what's going to be tomorrow. There are 1,000 great ideas. Tomorrow, who knows what's going to be? They may show up, they may not show up. May come late, may come early, may not. Who knows what's going to happen? That's a tohu person. There's so much light. They're going to overwhelm you with their love. The next thing, it may be nothing. We don't know. It's unpredictable. They're dynamic. It's fantastic. But all of a sudden, it's gone. By the way, there's a thing that we do in our home on Friday night when we make Kiddush. If anyone has been to my house, you may have noticed that when I fill up my Kiddush cup with wine, I overflow the cup. Many people that come to the house the first time, they're like in shock. Rabbi, what are you doing? Why are you spilling the wine everywhere? Wine on the tablecloth, on the plates. Just pour a half an inch below the rim. Why are you pouring overflowing? But it's tohu. Abundant light. The idea is abundant blessings. That's what we want. Don't confine the blessings just to the cup. You want to have so much blessings. The idea is that this concept exists of abundant light. That's fantastic. It has an advantage, but also disadvantage. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Is Tikkun Olam bring you to, or Tikkun brings you to Teshuvah, or Teshuvah brings you to Tikkun?
That's an excellent question. When we have a lot of light and we're all over the place, sometimes we're too all over the place. And we need to have something to ground us. So tikkun essentially means coming back to ourselves. Because if we spread ourselves too thin, then we can't find ourselves. We can't find our identity. So we need to regroup, build that vessel. That's essentially what teshuvah is, coming back together to our true sense, to our true self, to who we really are. And when we do that, we become a corrected individual. And we can then narrow our focus and zone in on what we really are good at. And that's essentially what tikkun means, correcting that which fell apart and building it back up. And that's what teshuvah is.
I have a question.
Okay.
We have Jacob and Esau as twins, and it only says twins. I've always assumed, because they're described so differently, that they were fraternal twins. But were they mirror twins or identical twins or fraternal twins?
Well, first of all, what's the difference? I'm saying why does it matter?
Fraternal twins are generated.
Why does it matter?
Why does it matter? Because you're giving the tikkun and tohu, and you have to have both of them within you. Fraternal twins don't share the same genes. Identical twins do, and mirror twins are identical twins that share the same genes, but they're reversed. They're different. They're mirror images of each other.
So,
and if you're drawing this analogy, I'm wondering how far it can stretch.
Okay. So it doesn't say in the Torah what type of twins they were, but based on your description, one thing we know for sure, they weren't identical twins, because it says that Esav was very hairy and a man of the field, and Jacob was a man of the books and very smooth skin. So certainly they weren't identical, that's for sure. But based on your description, I think the mirror twins would be the perfect description, because they had the same personality, but total opposite personalities, but both of the same, or inherently, they each complement each other, which is really the idea. They each have one aspect of the opposites, but together they're a wholesome being. You have the vessels, the light, in the vessels. So let's continue. As we discussed, amongst the disadvantages of Tohu model is that it is unstable and prone to conflict and strife. At times, this will lead to a total breakdown and corruption of the system. So let us look at some of the examples and see what can happen when the balance between light and vessels is one of abundant light and scant vessels.
Excuse me, Rabbi.
Yeah.
I had a question. Why did Jacob only bless one son? Why wouldn't he want to bless both his sons?
We're going to read some more text in a moment. We're going to get to that. That's an excellent question. And I understand why you're bringing up that question, because based on what we're discussing, that would be the logical question, that if Tohu and Tikkun are both necessary, then he should get a blessing. Both should get a blessing. So that's a good question. We're going to get to that in a moment.
Okay.
But for now, I remember once listening to a talk or a debate by the chief rabbi of England, Lord Jonathan Sacks, Olav Shalom, who just passed away last week. And Professor Richard Dawkins, who's a known atheist, writes about, no God and so on and so forth. And Richard Dawkins says that he wrote a letter to his daughter when she was 10 years old, telling her not to believe anything what you hear, what you see. Any moral decision should come from a collective group. Sit down with your friends and decide what's morality and what's ethics. Don't listen to any religion or any higher power or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he says three things that she should never listen to. Don't listen to authority, tradition, and revelation. Because authority and tradition can be corrupt, can be persuasive, and could direct you into a unhealthy place, and so on and so forth. So therefore, don't believe. So Rabbi Jonathan Sacks says, it's very interesting that you say that, because there's a story of a person who came to the great sage Hillel. And he says, I want to convert, but I want to convert to Judaism, but don't tell me any of the rabbinic nonsense. Don't tell me what the authorities said. Tell me the way you understand it, the way you want to say it. Let's talk person to person. Forget about all the traditions and the authority that you talk about. So Hillel says, no problem. He said, let's start with teaching you the alphabet. And he says, this is A, B, C, D. Okay. The next day, the man comes back for the second lesson. And so Hillel says, okay, C, this is a C, B, A. The guy says, what do you mean? Yesterday you said it's an A, B, C. Today you're saying it's a C, B, A. He says, I know, but you said you don't want me to rely on authority. You don't want authority, so who says an A is an A? Who said a B is a B? Today A is an A, tomorrow A is a B, or A, C is an A. What's the difference? Who said is what? You cannot go through life without having a teacher, without having this tradition. Was what he was saying. So a world of tohu by itself is not good. A world of tikkun by itself has its disadvantages. But a world of both, a world where you have tohu and tikkun simultaneously, is potentially can be a perfect world. It can be a world where we could take the advantages, the dynamic, the unpredictability, and the innovative aspect of tohu, and the focus, the harmony, the orderly fashion of tikkun, and we can bring them together. When we bring them together, we have a much stronger individual, a complete individual. What is that complete individual? So let's now personalize this for a moment. Tohu and tikkun in our lives. Why was tohu created if it was prone to failure? And the reason is because we need tohu. True God created tohu, and it caused the breaking of the vessels, the shattering of the world, which seems to be not good. But we need to have tohu also. We need to have that abundance of light, because we need to take advantage of both of these models. We need the model of Esav, we need the model of Jacob. We need Rome and we need Judea. We need materialism and we need spiritualism, spirituality, self-realization, and also self-transcendence. How does this work? So let's talk about how this functions, okay? How this plays out. It goes like this. We can see evidence of the power of tohu everywhere we look. Who are the most energetic, ambitious, and successful people you know? Those operating out of self-interest or those committed to an altruistic goal? Or we can ask, what has produced the most impactful discoveries, inventions, improvements to human life? What has driven the quest for power, for fame, for wealth, or the desire for a better world? We need the tohu elements in our world, and we need the tikkun elements. Why are tohu elements in our world more powerful than its tikkun elements? A simple answer can be because that's human nature. But Kabbalah says no. We can never say that's just the way things are. Everything is traced back to its origins, the defined process of creation. Tohu was created first. Tikkun was created second. What does that mean? That means that tohu seems to be at a much higher level than tikkun. Chaos seems to be superior than correction, than order. But what happens is that when something is really high, it can fall down really, really low. In fact, the higher something is, the lower it falls. If you have a tree with apples all the way on the top and apples on the bottom, and the apple on the top falls down and the apple on the bottom, the chances are when they're both laying on the floor, the apple that came from the higher part of the tree is lower than the one that came from the lower part of the tree. Because when something falls from very high, it makes a greater indentation in the ground and ends up being lower. So although tohu may have come first in the order of creation, when it travels down to our world, it is lower than the world of tikkun, lower than the order. Esav represents chaos. Jacob represents correction. Esav may have come from a higher level, but when it comes down into this world, it's lower than the higher level. It's lower than Jacob. Jacob, in our life, faces an uphill battle. So the world of tohu is God's original creation, making it the more primal reality, the scant light in abundant vessels. Of tikkun came afterwards, the need to contend with an already entrenched model of abundant light in scant vessels. So when spirituality struggles to gain ground in a materialistic world, it is battling the status quo. when our instincts for selflessness, commitment, and peaceful coexistence need to contend with our ego, greed, and animalistic passions, they face an uphill battle against the earlier, more primal self. That's what's going to happen. So the question was, question number 2, if Yaakov was destined to become the firstborn, why wasn't he born first? And the answer is because Yaakov and Esav both embody the dual realities of chaos and correction. So the story of their lives mirrors the cosmic sequence of creation, an earlier, powerful, chaotic world of Tohu, followed by a younger, gentler, more harmonious world of correction, of order. So why wasn't he born first? He couldn't have been born first. He could only been born once you have the chaos. Think about it in your own desk. When you walk into your office and your desk is littered with papers, and you say, that's it, today I'm going to clean up my desk. And you clean up your desk, you feel fantastic. It feels so much better than the neatness that your desk had before it got all messy. So your child's room may have been clean and then they made a mess out of it. But when they cleaned up their mess, it feels even cleaner than it was before. And so the level that Jacob reached after the chaos is why he was born second. But why do we need to have both? To be an Esav and to be a Yaakov. Why do we need to have the coexistence of the world of chaos and the world of light and vessels at the same time? Why can't we have them live side by side? You have the one kingdom, you have the other kingdom. Why does it have to be the battle of the two kingdoms? Why is each one striving to be the leader, the owner, the controller, the master? Why can't they just coexist? Two kingdoms, what's the problem? And this is the heart of the difference between Rivka, Rebecca, and Yitzchak and Isaac. The heart of how they not only disagreed, which, by the way, disagreeing, people used to think that if a couple argued, they were destined for divorce. Today, we realize that's not true. Every couple argues. There's nothing wrong to argue. The question is only, how do we argue? And how do we try to resolve that argument? That is the question, not whether we argue. Yitzchak and Rivka, yes, they disagreed, fundamentally disagreed. But we can learn also how they settled the dispute. And they disagreed in how to deal with these twins. Yitzchak liked Esav, the man of the field. Rivka liked Yaakov, the one who wanted to study. Let's watch the next part of the video, which I think will, again, help us understand and help answer the rest of these questions. Question 3, 4, and 5.
And it was, just as Jacob was going out from the presence of his father, that his brother Esau came from his hunt. And he said to his father, "My father should get up and eat of the game of his son, in order that your soul should bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your firstborn son Esau." Isaac trembled an exceedingly great trembling, and he said, "Who then is the one who trapped game and brought it to me? And I ate of it all before you had come, and I blessed him. Also blessed shall he be." As Esau heard the words of his father, he cried an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and he said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." And he said, "Your brother came with cunning and took your blessing." And he said, "Is this why his name was called Jacob? Twice he has deceived me. He took my birthright, and here now he has taken my blessing." And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Here I have placed him master to you, and all his brothers I have given to him as servants. And with grain and wine I have supported him. And for you, then, what shall I do, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me, also me, my father." And Esau raised his voice, and he wept. And his father Isaac answered, and he said to him, "Here, the fat of the land will be your settlement, and of the dew of the heavens above. By your sword you will live, and your brother you will serve. And it will be that when you are aggrieved, you will cast off his yoke from upon your neck."
Rebekah finds out that Esau is so angry over having been cheated out of the blessings that he is plotting to kill Jacob. So she convinces Isaac that it is time for Jacob to travel to her hometown, Haran, to find a wife.
Isaac called Jacob, and he blessed him, and he instructed him, and he said to him, "Arise, and go to Paddan Aram, and take yourself a wife from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And the Almighty God will bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and you will become a community of peoples. And he will grant you the blessing of Abraham to you, and to your seed with you, to inherit you the land of your dwelling, which God has given to Abraham."
Okay, so now let's try to answer some of these questions. I didn't realize how late it was, and so I'm going to try to go through this a little quickly. But I saw somebody asked on the chat, and it's an excellent question. I think that when we learn the stories of the Torah, the book of Genesis is so fundamental. It's not just stories, but it really teaches us about human conditions. And when we understand these stories, we can better deal with the human conditions, the human complexities. And so I'm not a medical professional. I can't deal with medical, medical questions of mental health questions or things like that. But certainly when we understand this idea that there's two personalities, not schizo personalities, but it simply two ideas and two fundamental personalities that help us be a wholesome human being. It helps us understand how people function. And they're not necessarily bipolar, but they simply could be sometimes exercising one principle, tohu, chaos, and one time they could be exercising another principle. But it does happen, though, that a person of chaos can be so chaotic, which can become dangerous. This way you need to have the balance. You need to have also order within chaos, and you need to have overflowing abundance within order. So you need to have both. It has to be a healthy balance, obviously, but this idea exists, yeah. So let's move on. So Isaac's blessing. Isaac grants material blessing to Jacob. Esav is giving a lesser material blessing. Someone asked before, Melissa, whether Isaac also blessed Esau? The answer is yes. Esau was very upset. One of the most famous movie clips is the clip from The Godfather, where Al Pacino sees how his daughter is killed, and he lets out this shrieking cry. Famous clip, a very famous scene from The Godfather. Anyone who has watched The Godfather, anyone knows this famous clip, famous theme. And so that's almost how I always envision this story, that Esau came back and he saw that Jacob stole his blessings. He let out this shriek, this scream like you never saw, from pure anguish. How could I have missed out on the blessings? And he asks Isaac to give a blessing. Isaac gives him the blessing. What blessing did Isaac give Jacob? He blessed him with material blessings, and he gave Esau also a blessing with material blessings. Then he blessed Jacob again with the legacy of Abraham's spiritual blessings. And then he again blessed Esau with material blessings, but he said that you will serve your older brother, which is the current older brother, Jacob, who bought the firstborn. You will serve him. Okay? This is what happened. Why did Isaac favor Esau over Jacob? That was question number 3, if you remember. And why did Rebekah favor Jacob over Esau? If Esau is a man of tohu, a man of potential, a man that can accomplish things, that has a drive, that has passion, maybe Isaac was right. Why didn't Rebekah see that? If Rebekah saw that having Jacob, who's focused, orderly, can get things done in a very meticulous manner, is responsible, why didn't Isaac see that? And the answer is that we're each coming from a different place. Isaac was looking to accomplish one thing, and Rebekah was looking to accomplish something else. Isaac's plan was to give each child the resources that they need to fulfill their role. Isaac understood that Esau is the man of the field. What does it mean, a man that prepares delicacies? Isaac was interested in food. Of course he wasn't interested in food. Isaac understood that Esau represents materialism at its finest. And Esau has the power to transform raw materials, raw resources into delicious, holy, godly, pure things. So Isaac's plan was to give Esau material blessings. I will give you the blessings of abundance of materialism. You will take that materialism, you will use it for good, for God, for holy things, to help people out. Isaac's plan was to give Jacob a blessing also, a blessing of Abraham, a spiritual blessing. Jacob was into studying, learning. You'll get the blessing that you need. You'll have a great mind. You'll be able to learn undisturbed. You'll be able to write many books. You have share many great ideas, many inventions. You'll be such a good person like that. Isaac saw for Jacob that he would mimic the transformation to receive the blessings, spiritual blessings. But what happened in the end? That's not what happened. Let's see text number 6 in the books, page 93. I'm going to read this just because time is late. Jacob is the realm of holiness. Without all this, he still would have received all the spiritual energies. But the first set of blessing granted him an increase of powers from the highest levels to obtain much grain and wine, referring to the laws and the stories of the Torah that become embodied in material garments and in the actions of mitzvahs. However, had Jacob not received these blessings, the power of Torah would have extended only to the spiritual realm. What happened? Isaac had a plan to give Esau the material blessings, Jacob the spiritual blessings. By Rebekah convincing Jacob to deceive his father, to receive the material blessings, what they accomplished at that moment in the world history was that they gave the power to Jacob. They can now take the materialistic world and elevate it and make it spiritual. The blessing is in your hand, Rebekah told Jacob. You have the potential to get that blessing. Go and seize the moment. Take that blessing. Because when you have the blessing, you know what you're going to do with the material bounty? You're not going to use it just to make a better steak. You're not going to use it just to have more luxuries, material luxuries, so you can boast and you can be famous. But you're going to use it in order to elevate the world better. You're going to use the materials that you have. You're going to use the smartphone, Zoom, the computer, the latest technology, not just to watch movies or sports or whatever it is, but you're going to use it to teach a Torah class. If Jacob was not the recipient of that blessing, he would not have been able to do that. He would not have been able to merge the material and the spiritual together. Esav was destined to get the blessing for spirituality, actually for materialistic things. Why? Because Isaac in his mind thought that if I give Esav the blessing for material bounty, he's going to utilize it for good. Because Esav has potential. I know Esav has potential, and I know he could use it for good. Let me give him his blessings and the tools that he needs. But what would have happened is that Jacob would have lost out any chance of elevating the material. So therefore, Rebekah, in her super visionary way, as all women are, super hypersensitive to the needs of society, and they can see the future, the holy women that we have, like Rebekah, she said, don't worry, Esav will get the blessing of material bounty, and he'll be able to maximize his potential if he wants to. But we cannot miss out the opportunity for you, Jacob, to get the material blessings. And when you do that, you will then be able to elevate and make the physical, the material, into spiritual. So what do we do today? When we take the world that we live in today, how do we live in this world? We take the challah, the wine, the candles, and we elevate it. We influence the physical world. That is because Jacob received these blessings. Rebekah understood that if Esav would have received the blessings, all he would have been interested is more money, more wealth, more fame. He would have lost sight of the true vision. Why? Because Esav personifies this idea of chaos. The Tohu personality has potential for good, but it's only in the potential. Sometimes it can get lost and it can be derailed. The Tikkun personality has firm control over their world. Sometimes to a fault, as we said. It's too static, too rigid, too controlled. So you need to have the balance. That's what Rebekah wanted Jacob to have. And that's why Rebekah convinced Jacob to take it, so she can maximize the Tikkun and the Tohu. He can maximize the firm control with also the unlimited potential for good. Now we have one final question. Why did this all have to come by way of deception? Could Rebekah not have convinced Isaac? After all, what does every logical couple do when they have a disagreement? They sit down and talk about it. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. They go to counseling. No, I'm kidding. They don't do that either. If only we would do that. Sit down nicely and have a nice conversation. But what should a true couple do? All right. Anyway, so what happened over here? What did Rebecca think? Rebecca said, we have a problem. We have a history. We have a history of a world that has gone astray. Isaac saw the lofty garden of Eden. He saw the lofty garden reality, beautiful. Everything seemed so rosy. After all, he was blind, right? In his mind, have you ever closed your eyes and had you daydreamed a little bit? Everything was so nice and so rosy and so beautiful. And then you opened up your eyes, right? It happens sometimes. So Isaac, whose eyes were closed, all he saw was the lofty garden. He saw Esav and he knew Esav has potential. He was 100% right. Esav has potential. For sure, Esav has potential. But he missed the point that Esav may mess it up, may screw up the potential and be derailed. But Rebecca, with her eyes open, understood that we live in a world that has a history. There's the serpent's deception that created a mixture of good and evil. We can't be so sure that good will be good and evil will stay evil. There may be a mixture. So therefore, the only way we can extract that blessing from Isaac is going to come from a way of deception. Let's read text number 7, page 94. Jacob's cunning was necessary in order to correct the sin of the tree of knowledge, which also came about through the cunning and enticement of the serpent, and which caused the coarsening of all the worlds and the intermingling of materialism and spirituality. To rectify this, Jacob turned the tables, drawing down spirituality and supernal power into materialism. He did the same deception that the serpent did, but he did it the opposite way. By him doing it the opposite way, he was able to now draw down holiness into materialism and make materialism into holiness. Because it was mixed together, and he says, wait, they could be mixed together, but we can take the benefit of both of them. And that's what he did. And this concludes today's lesson. And the takeaway, of course, is that when we care about the material world, we have the power to elevate it. Thank you for joining us. Sorry for going over a little bit. Have a great night. Good seeing you. Next week, we will talk about another fantastical story of Joseph and his brothers and the fight that they had over there and how they really, truly loved each other. Thank you very much. Have a good night. It's truly nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much.